I'm going to run through a example of how to set up um, a PHP development server or start it running and show you your first sort of PHP program. First of all, you have to install PHP on your computer. Um, so for Mac and Linux, this will be kind of relatively straightforward to install it and get it up and running. We'll need command line access, so that's kind of built into Mac or Linux. If you're on Windows, you'll want to use WSL. That's what I would recommend. That will allow you to have a nice command line to both install PHP and then start up the development server. So I'm going to go through setting up this development, or just turning on the development server and writing a couple sort of Hello World style programs. Now remember that when in PHP we're going to have this paradigm of we'll make a request via URL to the server, and all that's going to do is look up a particular PHP script and run it. So there's this sort of, you can think sort of mapping URL to PHP script. And all the PHP script is going to do is it does whatever sort of logic, whatever business it needs to. It's going to output, in these examples, just some HTML to be sent back to the user. So let's jump over to the terminal. This is the terminal on my machine. Now I've already installed PHP. So to run it, you use the PHP command. You have to give the -s option. You specify localhost and the port you want. So I'm going to use 8000. And then use the -t option to specify the document directory. That's what they call it. It's really the sort of the root directory for the server that will request scripts out of. So I named one PHP scripts. Run it. You should see something like this. This means it's all started successfully. It's listening on port 8000. I can switch over to my other tab here for my console. I can look in. I've got a couple files set up. So these are the two sort of scripts my web server can run. But let's jump over to a text editor and check this out. So first things first, this is actually fine what I have here in my browser. This is, if you just ask for localhost port 8000, you'll get this. This means the PHP development server is running. If I enter and request the page again, if I jump back over to the terminal, I should see, you can see it'll start logging here what's going on. It'll also log errors here too. So you can see there was a request for the root of the web server. This means, but I don't have anything sort of mapped to that path, so it doesn't know what to do. So that's why it says no such file or directory. But that's okay. That's not a real problem. Now let's jump back to the text editor here. So first things first, let's look here inside my text editor. I have sort of the base syntax for PHP. There's maybe a couple different ways of using PHP. It has to be inside like basically a PHP tag. The idea it was originally that you would have, like an HTML document, then you would embed sort of PHP chunks as tags. I think that was the original sort of use case. I think that's really sort of ugly. I'm going to use it in a slightly more modern way, and also I think personally I think this is a bit easier to read, and it's also a little more conventional in that it mirrors other programming languages. I'm going to use this keyword echo to generate content. So as I mentioned, the whole goal is, well, for PHP is to generate a response. So there's going to be a header. We have special functions if we want to specify fields or values in the header, but that's going to be sort of automatically, there's going to be a default one generated for us. The real output of the script is going to be the body of the response, In this case, it's just going to be HTML, though we could do JSON or something else if we wanted to. I'm just going to start actually by sending plain text, which our web browser will be happy to sort of render for us. So to sort of write to the response file, so that's one sort of analogy or way to think of it, is you're going to, whatever you sort of print out, in this case we call it echoing, is going to be dumped into this file, and that file is going to be the body of the response. And all that's just going to be sent back to the web browser or whatever's making the request. So I can echo out a string. So I don't necessarily even have to do HTML. So I'm just going to specify a string, use double quotes. You can use single quotes also in PHP. PHP is really heavily influenced syntactically by the C programming language. That means we're going to have a semicolon at the end of each line. So this should be a sufficient hello world example. So now I come back over here to my web browser. I'm going to put at the end of this hello.php. So again, the URL is going to point to the script we're going to run. Now I'm going to have a lot of scripts in that directory. Each one will run sort of independently unless I explicitly say, hey, go include this other file. That'll be, I'll show an example of that a little further down the road because we can make more modular style programs that way. But for now, this URL is just pointing at a program it's just going to run. I make the request, I get back just hello. And if I inspect the source, that's literally all that's sent back as the body is just hello. Well, with an exclamation point, but you get the idea. So Echo built the body of the response, it got sent back. Now it's rendered here on the page. Congrats, it's a hello world in PHP. Now, let me show you how to actually generate some HTML with this. There's no real trick to this. You just specify. Now, you can, what's kind of nice is you can include new lines within the string literal. So you couldn't do this in like Java or Python, right? If you have, or maybe not maybe in Java, but not Python. But, oops, put that exclamation point in the wrong spot. Whoops. So I specify the doc type. Now I can just start writing HTML here. And let's say okay, so I'm just gonna write this. So just write some HTML here on the fly. So this is not going to look terribly different. I'm going to say hello. I'll just say hello. I'm actually going to write this to a different file. I'm going to switch to that file. Well, that was stupid of me. Shoot. Oh, I make it, put it in a different spot. No, I just erased the whole thing. Well, that was dumb. Anyways. Vim got me. Let me just quickly write this out again. So again, with PHP, we're just specifying the body of your response. So doc type HTML. I'm going to specify some tags in here. HTML. Yeah, sorry, this is a little tedious. So here we go. Now I want to put a semicolon because that's technically the end of the line. So notice I wrote the greeting.php. So this is a different file. Now I can come over here and change this to greeting.php. Run this. All right. Now that ran, I can also show you that, yes, it did generate all the HTML and sent it back for me. Also, let's go peek at the terminal again. So you can see there's a couple requests in here. So one to hello.php, one to greeting. Now let me make a syntactic error. Let me remove, so if I go back to my editor, if I remove the semicolon, so I took that off, I had a semicolon here, take that off. Now, if I make a request, oh, it's not a big enough error. Let me add an extra double quote on the end. That will assuredly break it. Yes, so this is what you'll see if you get an error. You'll get this HTTP error 500. 500 is internal server errors. That's what it means. You'll get this a lot as you're developing, because if you make a syntax mistake or there's some major logic flaw, usually it's syntactical, or if there's an exception thrown, PHP is automatically going to set the header, the response type, to 500. Now if I go back and take a peek at the terminal, it'll show up here. So it's complaining, oh no, we're missing all this stuff, there's some problem on this line, so let me go back and fix this. Now I can come here and request it. Yay, it's all working again. So just know that, and you can see, oh, nice green response down here. So that's a clue that, hey, if you get it, oh, that's just something that's going to happen. When you're developing, you're going to get these internal server errors, 500. That's what that means. If you're running the development server like this, then just go look at the console. You'll see the error output there, and hopefully that will help you debug it. And also, oh, let me show you back in the terminal. If I click back to this other tab, I can see, yes, I have these multiple scripts here. I could put as many as I want there. And then there's that connection between the URL and the actual script being run. So if I go back, I just want to keep pointing that out, that, yeah, so I put greeting.php here. It just looks up for that file in that directory and tries to run it. And if there's an error, you'll see it there, show up there in the terminal as well. Okay, so let's go back to a few other sort of PHP basics. Declaring a variable. So let's say I want to make this is a greeting page for a particular person. Let's greet George. So in PHP, variables have a $sign in front of them when you declare them. You do not declare their type. So PHP that makes PHP a dynamically typed language. That is, the type of each variable is determined at runtime rather than ahead of time, which would be static typing. We simply, and I'll show you why they chose to do this, use $, then whatever variable name you want to define a variable. I'm just going to drop a string George in here. Now they chose to put in a $, because one thing they like to do is the string type is you can do string interpolation, meaning I can reference my variables from within a string literal. So that means you can see it's syntactically highlighting, even I can put the name in here. Now when I go to reload the page, I see hello George. That's pretty nifty. So this helps. This is just a nice feature that allows for PHP to basically be like a HTML sort of template, right? We can specify a lot of HTML here, and then sort of fill in these values like this, kind of like a really, really boring Mad Lib. So that's sort of basic HTML creation. I'm just going to cover up a couple more simple topics here that kind of close the loop on sort of the I/O aspect of PHP. So if I come over here And I can, on the end of any GET request, I can specify GET parameters. So there's parameter names and parameter values. So I can send in, let's say I want to make a greeting for a greeting page, but I want to specify who I'm greeting. So I could say, let's say Billy. So this is the sort of syntax for including GET parameters in a URL. To access those in a PHP script, there's this magic global variable, since it's such a well-designed language, that has all the GET parameters. Now I'm going to ask for, I call the GET parameter name. I'm going to access it this way. This $_get is this sort of magic dictionary of all the parameters. So I'm going to access the parameter by its name, aptly named name, and get out Billy, put it in a PHP variable called name, and then display that. So let's refresh the page and see what happens. Dun dun dun. Oh, no, I thought it was an error, but I refreshed. There we go. I had to hit enter instead. So I sent in Billy. Now it says hello Billy. Great. So I was able to send in a parameter with a particular value and display it. So this is one of the usages for PHP, is you can sort of have these. It's almost like a templating aspect for HTML, and a lot of sort of successor languages or frameworks for the web call this aspect like templating. So they'll have like a templating engine for Flask or something like that. Would be a way to generate HTML with kind of values plugged into them. So that gives us sort of basic input output. The only other thing uncover here. Oh, I'll just mention that there's a few different types in PHP. We have strings, ints, floats, booleans, arrays, which kind of do too much, everything under the sun, and then classes we can specify. Also, null is a thing. One last thing. So I'm just going to kind of syntactically mix up the style of this page a little bit. So I kind of alluded to earlier, we could use PHP like its tags in a document. So I'm going to do that here. So if I take out that sort of PHP tag, if I have it just initially, that means I'm setting this variable up here. Now, everything outside the tag is just going to go in the body of the response. So all this stuff specified here is just HTML. I want to look up that name though, so I'm going to drop in like say a PHP tag here. I'll change this a little bit so you can believe me that it's actually different now. So this is why it's sometimes called the preprocessor, right? So you can think you're basically specifying an HTML page with these PHP tags in it. And what PHP does is it goes through and runs and evaluates or pre-processes the tags and puts in the particular values before it gets sent back to the user. So that's where that name comes from. This is sort of the original usage. I kind of like what I was doing before. I think is more clear than this. But let's just go ahead and give it a run. See hello again. Oh, I have to also see, I hate this. Here we go. I have to do this. Oh, I have some stupidness on the end. There we go. Hello again, Billy. There we go. I still have to echo within the PHP tag to display something. But that's sort of this is the original usage for PHP. Again, I kind of like treating it more like a procedural language and just happen to be printing out HTML or JSON at the end. But this is sort of the original sort of pattern for it. You can see here this is really like a template now for HTML. But that's a couple examples of firing up PHP and creating a couple hello world examples here. So I guess I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching.